The 3070 finally drops below MSRP. Apple and Google are teaming up to fight the forces of evil, and AMD really screwed up. It's a big one. Let's get into the hot news, everybody. I'm your Brett host. We're going to be going over the hottest tech news I can find on the internet this Wednesday, May 3rd, 2023, while you enjoy your breakfast, which I hope involves a little bit of onion. We're going to start off today talking about some details with regards to AMD's 7800X3D chips that have been exploding. This isn't the big whoopsie. That's going to be covered at the end of hot news. But with this, there's been found out details from Steve at Gamers Nexus, as well as other third-party sources, that a lot of this issue comes down from AMD not issuing enough safety guidelines and motherboard vendors kind of going around some safety precautions that probably should have been implemented either due to oversight or laziness or just pure screwing up. And with that, ASUS now issuing some new warnings in their motherboard BIOS that enabling XMP or EXPO can be considered overclocking, and that, you know, this might necessarily void the warranty. You know, hey, it's not our fault that we didn't put in the protective measures that should be on the motherboard to stop the chip from literally exploding, but it's on you, the customer. You should know that when you buy a piece of RAM that's rated at a certain speed and then you actually set it in the motherboard very easily in one single click to get it to that speed, it's your fault if your chip explodes. Go watch Gamers Nexus deep dive on this issue. We have it linked in the video description. It really helps to highlight how it was a multitude of factors, bad silicon, ASUS looking over a few things that probably shouldn't have, as well as just misguidance from AMD on how the BIOS should be set up that led to these CPUs having these many issues. But ASUS wants you to know it's on you. It's been on you to pony up the cash for graphics card upgrades over the last few years, with the GPUs like the RTX 3070 reaching 12, 13. Some people have even paid 1,500 buccarinos for that bad boy. Kyler, how much you pay for your 3070? He got an MSRP because he's better than all of you, but now it turns out that you can be better than him because across multiple regions, the RTX 3070, 2.5 years later, these things launched in October of 2020, now are below MSRP for what appears to be one of the first time ever. However, there is a big caveat to that. So you can see over in Germany, you can get a 3070 for 450 euro. And if you look over on a US site like Newegg, it looks like there's a whole bunch that are below MSRP, but these appear to be Chinese-based cards that might have come from mining rigs, and that does create a little bit of a tricky issue. Like this one says it's 8 gigabytes of GDDR6, which is a little concerning. All of the more reputable brands that we're used to here in the States are closer to that $500 price point, so it does look like we're still roughly at MSRP, not quite below in all sectors here in the US. Just even quickly looking at Micro Center, all of their cards are still above MSRP, so we still have a long ways to go, but it does kind of clearly show why NVIDIA feels so bolstered to sell things like the RTX 4070 at $599 and other cards at similar extreme prices, because we paid for it in 2020 through 2022. People bought the cards hand over feet. They made sure that they went out, they bought these cards at more than what the MSRP was, and we showed to NVIDIA, it doesn't matter. If you give us the goods, we will give you the cash. And that just, like, you can't blame any one person because there's a whole host of factors. People needed to upgrade their rigs because they were working from home more. They needed it for more intense applications that they were going to be running. You can't just look at one specific person and say, you're the reason NVIDIA can get away with this. It's all of our faults. It's every single person who purchased a GPU above MSRP because we had to, not blaming you. If you had a good reason for it, you needed to get it done for work or otherwise, get it. But it creates this issue where now 2.5 years later, cards aren't still fully under MSRP, and NVIDIA is not going to release the cheap cards because why would they do that? They can still sell a 3070 for 580 bucks. Maybe Reece can assuage my cynicism a little bit with some UFD deals. Let's see what he has. Thanks, Reece, but hopefully the PlayStation 5 will be going on a great deal sometime soon, because we're getting reports that the PlayStation 5 Pro has been confirmed to be 100% in development and dev kits are seeding out soon. So this is coming from Insider Gaming, who has some reports on the next-gen hardware that Sony is going to be releasing, including one thing that they have announced, which is Project Leonardo. This is their accessibility set of controllers that will allow people who have challenges to actually firmly play video games on the PlayStation, which I've been looking forward to. It does look, at least according to Insider Gaming, that this should be launching in Q4 2023. Also in September of this year, we're looking to get the PlayStation 5 refresh, which is going to remove the disk drive from the actual PlayStation and make it detachable. Not a whole lot. It might get slimmer. Doesn't look like it's going to change a whole lot. Additionally, there looks to be some new audio hardware coming out from Sony. The Q-Lite handheld that we've talked about, which will be exclusively for remote play and essentially be a DualSense controller with a screen in the middle. And then you have the PlayStation 5 Pro, which according to Insider Gaming, they are saying that they can report with a 100% degree of certainty that the PS5 Pro is currently in development. And while they cannot report on any more specifics at this time, they understand that the first dev kit prototypes will be going to first-party developers within the next couple of months, with third-party developers receiving them by the end of the year. And their tentative release date for the PS5 Pro is going to be Q4 of next year, which makes it 4 years since the PlayStation 5 actually launched, which is a sensible release cadence, kind of lines up with where we got the PS4 Pro from the PS4. One of the things that I am hoping for is that they don't do what the PS4 did, which was just add an extra set of GPU cores, but not really change the CPU a whole lot. I really, especially since they made it on regular hardware, give us an upgraded Zen 4 CPU with RDNA 3 graphics, kind of what we're seeing in the current handhelds that are out there. Something like a high TDP, high core count Z1 Extreme. Instead of 12 compute units, you go a lot higher. 8 core, 16 thread. I think we could probably stay there. Maybe they'd scale it up, but I'm looking forward to the PS5 Pro. I want to see what they have. And Apple and Google don't want people to see that you're being tracked by an AirTag illicitly or without your knowledge, so they are teaming up in order to create a standard to make sure that AirTags and other trackers have a way of being detected across all platforms, because currently iOS has that for their AirTags. They do not have it for other third-party trackers. Google does have an app that allows you to find AirTags, but you have to initiate it and won't warn you while it's happening. I remember back when we did the review on the Kia EV6, we got that from Ron Lewis Ford, and one of the managers accidentally left his AirTag in the vehicle, and we kept getting notifications that this AirTag was traveling with us because we were on iOS. But if we had been on Android, we'd have no idea, and this has led to a whole lot of issues with people being stalked, a lot of tracking that shouldn't otherwise be going on, and Apple and Google getting together as part of a task force to make this happen. Additionally, they say that Samsung, Tile, Chipolo, Eufy Security, and Pebblebee have all said that they're interested in getting involved with this task force to help to come up with a standard for how to track these, make sure that people are staying safe, because ideally this is being used in scenarios where you're tracking goods and items, not necessarily people, and we can find a good solution to that altogether, which is what Intel has been looking for when it comes to their CPUs, because with the launch of the 12th and 13th gen chips, they had to do away with one of the features that was on it called AVX 512, which is just an instruction set that allows it to run specific tasks. And AMD brought that to all of their chips with Zen 4, so all of the latest AMD chips allow for this feature set. None of the latest Intel chips have allowed for this feature set, even though Intel brought this out many years ago, and it turns out that they are still looking to potentially bring this back to consumer customers because it still existed on the server side. So a lot of people presumed Intel was trying to get cash out of people. Turns out it actually might have to do with the architecture issues that they're having with the big and little core setup on the hybrid system. Some hypotheses could be that they'll allow AVX 512 again if E-cores are disabled, add AVX 512 to E-cores, as well as several other ways to correct this. So maybe Intel might be getting back to the goodness and the basics of what they used to have, but we look forward to Intel's future with Battlemage, because it's being reported that a lot of people post on LinkedIn what they're working on and help to confirm rumors in the tech side so that we know that these are actually happening. An individual went down and tracked all of the Intel engineers who might potentially be working on graphics department stuff, and you can see that there are people who are working on 3nm and 4nm projects in the graphics department on Intel, which tends to indicate that they're working on Battlemage and Celestial, which is a good thing, and I'm excited for it. But it's confirming what we already know. But what we didn't already know is that AMD is severely vulnerable, okay? They had their GPUs dying with the 7900 XTX, they had their X3D chips exploding, but this honestly might be the worst thing of it all, because it turns out that their fTPM modules can actually be hacked, which is a huge issue because these TPM setups are supposed to make it so that that your device is secure. They're being completely required on Windows 11 for security reasons, and with researchers coming out and saying that AMD has some severe issues when it comes to Zen 2 and Zen 3 with fTPM. Doesn't mention whether or not Zen 4 has these issues, but they found that with just a couple $100s of off-the-shelf parts, you can actually physically hack these devices, which one of the reasons TPM exists is because it's supposed to prevent the physical ability of somebody who has access to a hard device to actually hack it. It's supposed to lock you out of the system and make sure that you can't actually have that. But because of how they can modulate the voltage on the TPM chip, they can crack it and make it so that people have access to what's on the device, which creates a whole host of issues for anybody who's trying to create security on an AMD device in a way where if the device gets in the hands of somebody nefarious, this could actually cause severe data vulnerabilities, breaches, and other issues. AMD at the time of recording has not responded to this. It is not quite clear whether or not this is affecting the latest Zen 4 CPUs, as I mentioned, and according to the reports, it doesn't seem like AMD can just patch this because it's a voltage issue. This might actually have to have some updates in the architecture, so we might not see this actually get corrected until Zen 5, which makes AMD hugely vulnerable for any sort of security reasons moving forward. We'll keep you updated as this story develops because this dropped just a few hours before I recorded Hot News today, but this could create some issues down the line. Normally, when it comes out that there's a vulnerability like this and it says that you have to have device access in order to actually hack the device, that's not such a big deal because normally then that person can do a whole lot more, but being able to crack TPM, that's the whole point of TPM, is that you can't get into the device even if you physically have it. It's not supposed to be made for remote prevention. It's supposed to be made for local prevention, and that's why this is such a big deal. And I'm not a big deal. I'm done with this episode of Hot News. See you tomorrow.